and welcome back to another episode of the Square Go podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Alexander Henry Charles Henderson III years. As per usual, on my left I have Ian Money Gordon, aka Nips McGregor, and in absentee today is Steed, who has decided he would rather be in South America touring with a punk band than sitting here in Kirkcaldy with us in a nightclub. Our guests this week are Charlie Parker, writer, director, photographer, and Jack Fox, writer, director, and VFX artist. Together they are the team that is responsible for Chaos Rising. And, there we go. Nice job, Gary.
Yeah, that's nice.
We're shooting this week from a nightclub VIP area. For bands.
Yeah, the hallowed boards that have been tread by Hollyoaks actors.
Is that right?
We've had,
I'm honoured.
We've had EastEnders celebrities here. We've had
Wakefield, you said.
Yeah, Venga Boys.
Venga Boys.
Yeah, Venga Boys.
The Venga bus is coming.
Big shout out to Ross Anderson for letting us use the venue. Do we have a graphic, Gary, for the venue?
We do.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place. It's the only nightclub in Kirkcaldy. If you fancy a night in Kirkcaldy, it's the only choice you have. But he's done a great job with the place, and thank you again for letting us use it.
It's nice.
Cool. McGregor, by the way, is my granny's maiden name.
There you go.
Did you know that?
It came through me. No. I channeled it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it, McGregor Nips?
Nips McGregor.
Nips McGregor.
I'll literally make it up on the spot. So first and foremost, how did you guys end up individually getting into filmmaking? And then tell us the story of how you fell in love and started making films together.
Oh, it's like a Disney story. Well,
mostly involves drinking.
It's pretty much all drinking, but we'll come to that. I kind of got started when I was about 10 years old. I think it's like the kind of traditional filmmaker story. You end up working with like an early generation camera from each generation. For me, it was like a digital camera. It was one of like the very early generation with like the little screen you could do bursts of video, and it kind of like flipped a switch in my brain, and it was like, I can make movies. I can just film something, look at it back on the camera, put it in a computer and edit it. So it kind of that opened the creativity door for me, and I just went out and made stuff on the weekends. Cool. Just zombie movies, and I kept doing that for 20 years.
How old
Doing it.
How old did you say you were?
10 years old.
Yeah, nice.
10, and then kept doing that for a long time and just kept making movies. And even then, the weird thing was, I was thinking about it the other day, even then it was just about entertainment. It was just about making something that my friends and my family would find fun and interesting to watch, and it still is to this day.
So did you edit that stuff as well, or were you editing in camera?
I edited it, yeah.
Right.
So I used iMovie,
yeah.
So early gen, and I'd be like using that plus Photoshop to like paint in blood and stuff like that. So even then I was doing like VFX
from the start. Nice.
like old school brute force VFX. So I got started early and just kept doing it. Yeah.
What's weird is my first film, I did VFX as well. I did Kill Bill in 60 seconds, and it was for a competition. And what was it? Virgin Media or something had like a short film competition. You had to remake a film within like a 60-second version of film. I did Kill Bill in 60 seconds.
Were you 10?
No. I was a teenager. I was like 14, 15, 16, something like that. And it was a similar concept, to be honest. I got a camera and I wanted to do something.
That's like the classic filmmaker. I mean, even like Spielberg and stuff.
Yeah.
But for them, it was like Super 8 and things.
Well, we all live in the Matrix, so it's like the pre-downloaded memory.
That's it. That's exactly it.
So that's my memory too. Is like getting a handy cam, wanting to make films. Originally, I wanted to make games, and then I realized I hate programming, and I was like, it's actually the storytelling aspect of it that I love. So I wanted to make films. Yeah, and I made Kill Bill in 60 seconds. Did it all on green screen. My first film with a handy cam. I was like, let's go with green screen.
Oh my God,
and by green screen, I mean wallpaper. And I used a work light as my lighting. So it's just this one big orange light, which turns the green screen orange.
Oh my God.
So the end result is this absolute hysterically awful like series of me and my mates dressing as every single character with bits of like green blob in the background. And it's just, it turned into like such a shit show. I decided to own the fact that this film was a shit show and just played on that fact instead.
So did you use backgrounds from the actual film then?
I used whatever
I
I could
really
get hold
wanna
of
see
at the
this.
time. Yeah. What was even better is I had all these other people that were supposed to show up and play the female characters, and they didn't show up. So I had my mates
right.
putting wigs on to play the
Just
female
get them in a
characters.
wig. Get
It was
them in a wig. That's it.
absolute It was chaotic. It was horrible. But you know what? I got the crash course on Adobe Premiere that night because I was like having to learn so many advanced techniques on my first like session of using it.
That's the way of doing it. I think that sums up my entire learning process.
Yeah.
For film is just jumping at the deep end.
Yeah.
Try and imitate something that you've seen and enjoy. Because me and my friends, we'd go to the video store, we'd rent a film, we'd watch it, and then the next day we'd rewind it, we'd rewatch it, and then we'd go out and we'd imitate it. So we'd go out and we'd make The Matrix, or we'd do Kill Bill, or whatever, and just jumping at the deep end.
I think generationally as well, people of our age still had a childhood. So we had that childhood where we got to sit around and watch movies every weekend, and Blockbuster was still a thing. And like the movie was like this sort of sacred chapel as part of your week's process. Was like, I can't wait till Friday because we're going to get 1 or 2 movies out, and I'll rewatch them over and over again and give them back Monday.
And it was the movie of the week as well. It wasn't like just another bit of disposable content. It was this is the movie that's out in the video store. We're going to watch it, and we're going to rewatch it, and then we're going to imitate it.
The word content wasn't used yet.
That did not exist.
You know, we savored things. Savor culture was our thing back then, and it was savoring the one movie I got to watch on VHS. I'd rewatch it like sometimes 3 or 4 times if I absolutely loved it.
Oh yeah.
And then it'd go back, and then I'd think about that movie, eventually get it, maybe.
That was
definitely.
That was your chance to get lost in fantasy or detached from reality, if you will. But whereas now we're always detached from reality.
Yeah.
Everything's 15-second clips, and
Like you say, someone would have seen a camera back then and thought, I can tell a story with this, whereas someone will see a camera now and think,
it's second nature
be
now.
content.
it could be viral.
It's second nature to kids now because everyone's got a movie studio in their pocket. But back when we were kids, it was like this new thing. It was like, wow, we can actually do this now. We can go out and make a movie. So that's kind of how I got started, and then I went to uni and I did TV production, so multicam setup and things like that. So it wasn't quite film. And then it wasn't until the end of uni that I kind of got into doing visual effects. I think I bought Andrew Kramer's Action Essentials 2.
oh yeah,
If you've heard of that, it's like classic VFX stock.
yeah.
And I was using Final Cut, so I didn't even have After Effects, and I was just like click and drag and then tracking it manually frame by frame, so no camera tracking. And I think I did something at the end of uni, handed it in, and the lecturer was like, see, if you'd handed that in, you would have got a better grade than the thing you spent all you doing. And I was like, well, thanks for telling me. I continued doing that, and then we met at a 48-hour film competition.
Oh yeah.
Because I directed a film, heavy VFX. You'd done a film, and I think you'd seen mine in the screening and said,
I'd been headhunting for a VFX artist since like the start of uni.
that was it.
When I went to uni, I knew that I wanted to run a production company by the end of it, and I started like every time I could afford to, I'd buy something towards having a production company, so a bit of kit.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a light or a lens or something like that. So I kept doing that throughout uni with the hope that by the time I finished uni, I'd have enough stuff that I could go independent. Thankfully, that ended up happening. So I started running a production company that does like corporate films and things like that. That became my bread and butter work, as well as photography. But in amidst that, I watched a lot of the golden era of YouTube was people like Freddie Wong and Corridor Digital.
Yeah, big influences for us.
Huge influences for a lot of filmmakers, I imagine, especially for us as well, which is like VFX-driven action short films, which are just super entertaining. They use a lot of VFX, all that kind of stuff.
I think that was the reason I got the pack. The Andrew Kramer pack, because they had recommended it or something.
I think that's the point where he's obviously been watching them. I've been watching them and somewhere else, and we've both had the same sort of, we want to do stuff like that. I saw that he was a VFX artist, and I struggled to find one before then, and I just saw it, and I just went to Jack, and I was like, hey, you did that film? And he's like, yep. I was like, you a VFX artist? He was like, yep. And I was like, I'm looking for one. I want to start something that's kind of like a Freddie Wong channel. And he's like, cool. And I was like, shall we meet later? And he's like, yep. Gave him my card and I went, see you later. That was it.
That was it. And then the interesting thing is the previous VFX artist that you were working with, our friend PD, he'd moved to London. He's actually our editor now, so he edited Chaos Rising. He made the smart choice to get out of VFX and just get into editing roles down in London.
But he wanted to be an editor, and I kind of like went, please do the VFX on these films. So like some of my earlier short films, he was forced to do them, and he hated it. And he was like, no, I want to be an editor. And it's like, fair enough.
So did you do a VFX heavy film for your 48-hour entry, or was that?
Yes, I did. What year was that? I think I did. Was it 5 Minutes at Frankie's, which was like a little horror film.
It was a horror film.
And there was a scene in it where a guy gets dragged by a ghost, like along a corridor, and I basically just masked manually the person out to become a ghost.
Like that hidden cam.
It was like Paranormal Activity type thing. And
because I had the experience of doing it was a 60-hour film, but competition, and we'd shot loads of stuff, and then I was trying to do loads of compositing, masking. And it just made me sick to the stomach. The fear of like not being able to make the deadline because I was still going to be working on this.
You need to cut corners, and I still do. Like, it's finding a balance between a good end result and also the time constraint.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just need to. If you were to look behind the scenes of my VFX, it's like sellotape, and you look at it from one angle and it works. But if you look behind the scenes, it's a mess. So it's finding that balance. But I did. So I did that film. And it had some VFX. I think I won the award for VFX.
Nice.
For that one. I got them consecutively from that competition, actually, the next year. But we'd already started making our media mashups stuff for YouTube. And that was the Freddie Wong, Corridor Digital inspired.
Directly inspired by that, but we put our own spin on it. And it was making like video game parodies.
Yeah.
I had a background in comedy at that point. I'd worked a lot with comedians and things. Jack obviously had his VFX side, so we combined the two and made like sketches based within video games. And it had like various levels of success, but also frustration because a lot of the successes happened through other portals. Like Unilad used one of our videos. They asked for permission, shared it and stuff, and it got like 2 million views, and we're like, that's amazing, but it didn't trickle down to our channel. So the source channel wasn't getting the views, but like our work was. But in today's terms, that doesn't mean anything for the creator. So
that was frustrating. It
was difficult.
It was right at the point where Facebook video was really quite big. So everyone was sharing it and things, and we were like, well, we've got a platform now, and we're getting 100,000 views, but nothing was trickling down to us.
So that was on your radar as something to do, was to monetize the stuff that you were putting on YouTube.
We were hoping that we'd get to that place with mashups on YouTube. And it had bouts of success. Eventually we ended up doing media mashups for BBC Social, because BBC Social brought us on as writer-directors for that. But they... how do I put it? Killed the channel.
I think it was at that point where we were right at the peak of the Facebook kind of boom, and then it just went. So suddenly, everyone shifted to. I think that's when TikTok came out. So everyone shifted to TikTok or Instagram, and the Facebook views just dropped off. And because we were primarily on that platform, or certainly with BBC Social, we were. It didn't migrate. So we just kind of fell off in terms of views.
The birth of user-generated content.
I
really worry that there's like a whole generation of like creativity just wasted on TikTok now.
I
mean, it might be good for us, less competition, but like so many great video creators and creative minds and all that are just pouring all their efforts into trying to go viral. Or trying to get likes.
And at the end of the day, a lot of it is luck based. We were talking about it earlier on, because it's like trying to predict the algorithm and how you can go viral, and a lot of the time it's just right time, right person watching it, right person sharing it, and you can't predict it. And I personally got really frustrated with it and stopped doing it.
I guess one thing people forget about when it comes to social media is that the creator is also the target for these social media platforms. Like, the creator thinks they're the ones that are going to benefit from it, but from a business perspective, you've got your creators and you've got your people watching creators. They want both of them to be addicted to the platform. So as soon as you start making stuff for TikTok, you've lost, because they will starve you of views, give you views, starve you of views to keep you just as hooked as the viewers are. And they've admitted that publicly.
I've spent so much energy personally trying to create stuff, maybe like a year of really trying to get followers and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm not a consumer.
Yeah.
I'm a creator, so that's cool. I'm on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, but it's
And then
it's not
you're
true.
no
You're
further
in,
forward.
You're in the same camp
Exactly,
as the
yeah.
rest of them.
That's it.
Brought in
Working
space
for
by
them.
the TikTok gods.
But that is one of the main reasons that we kind of left the BBC The Social.
Yeah.
Because we were like, we're trying to jump through hoops and predict the algorithm and predict the audience engagement, and we're not getting where we want to be. Where we want to be is making feature films.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we thought that by going through a channel like this where we're making high quality content and getting views, that it would open the door, and it just didn't, and it started to drop off. So that's when we were kind of like, what do? We need to make a film.
Yeah.
So we need to just come up with an idea, go back to doing similar to what we were doing in Media Mashups, action, high concept, genre films, make one and get it out there. But using the knowledge that we'd picked up from the understanding
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
social media marketing and whatever else. And that's what we did, and that's what led to Chaos Rising ultimately. And that's a whole other journey in itself, but that's what got us there.
And it was Media Mashups was the reason that the guys we made Chaos Rising with, Graham Carlisle, Graham McEwen, one of them already knew who Jack was, so we were kind of on each other's radars. They worked with the Clan, who are like a big team of like SPAC'd actors who do like stunts for backgrounds and stuff like that.
Clan
Clan
Ranald.
Ranald,
Yeah.
Clan Ranald, yeah, and they do a lot of that kind of like fighting stuff for medieval set films, etc. So they have a lot of experience to bring to the table in terms of stunt action, things like that.
Yeah.
Me and Jack were in the market for looking for people like that because we wanted to make more action filmy type stuff, and we tried it a couple times with people who'd never done fights before, and it was really obvious immediately.
Yeah.
So we needed to work with people who had, and one
Also,
of them
we'd never done fantasy. We'd done sci-fi, and we'd done video games and stuff, but we hadn't done fantasy, and it was something that both of us were like, if we get a chance and we have people that have, fantasy resources, that's absolutely something we want to do.
Yeah, so in terms of the germination of that idea, it must have been because in order to create a world like that, you need loads because you need your environment, you need your actors, your costumes, and all of that. So were you looking at that thinking, if we can find the right elements, we can go for this? Or
they kind of brought it to us. When we first started talks, they went, look, we've got this random idea for a film. We'd like to be, they said they're used to doing stunts for other people and they never get a say creatively, and they'd like to have a say creatively. They'd seen the Media Mashup stuff, knew we were capable, and they're like, can you do something with us? Because we've got costumes, we've got people, we've got a massive location. And we're like, this is a treasure trove for us as filmmakers because we've not got any of that. But we do have the skills to turn it into something. So they literally gave me a single-sided page of A4 which had bullet points on it, and that was a script.
that was the script. That was the idea. But that was enough to go on because it got our attention.
Yeah.
And then we were we'd done these kind of projects before where it was almost like a partnership with other groups, and they kind of worked. They didn't really get us where we wanted to be. So we were cautious, but then they invited us along to Duncarron Medieval Village, which is the site that they own. And we met the guys, and they were just a great bunch of guys, and just super passionate. And you could tell that there was this amount of passion and creativity that was kind of untapped because they were doing bigger projects, but they were just there as stunties.
And it's an incredible location as well.
It's an incredible location. You're kind of taken aback.
12th century medieval fortified village to label it correctly.
Very cool.
Up until that point, you hadn't seen the fort.
We knew about it.
We knew about it, but we hadn't visited it.
Yeah.
And I think, because I went to uni with Gummy, Graham Carlisle. He was a year below me. And we kind of spoke, and I think I'd ran into him about a couple of years, maybe a year before we did Chaos Rising in a pub. And he told me that he was working with Clan Ranald. And I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, because Jack had flagged them to me whilst we were doing Media Mashups. And we're like, at some point we should talk to these guys. So it was kind of something we hoped to happen anyway. And then when it eventually did, it just worked out that there was, there's 100-odd volunteers there, and they're all super ambitious and just really keen to get stuff made, same as us. So it's just combining all that ambition / just willingness to make stuff, no matter
eagerness to make a film.
I think it is a great discipline to apply if you're an emerging filmmaker, is to kind of look at what have you got? What can you use? And then let's try and write something around that.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
You know what? There was an ethos that I took on whilst we were making Chaos, which I said to Jack, because I did do some TikTok stuff as well, was now we're working with people within this time period. I was like, let's just make all of our other projects align with that, so that's easier for us to make stuff that's in that, if we know a bunch of people with costumes that are medieval, let's just start making medieval content. That's the short and narrow of it, because if we're jumping between that and modern stuff, then we're having to amass all this other kit. And that
it's like Steed is just stuck in World War II for the rest of his life.
I mean,
it works.
You know what? You've got all the resources. Just keep making stuff in that category, because resources can be some of the most expensive parts of putting a film together. And just keep hitting at it from different angles until one of the things you do works. And we're still in that right now. Where we're just
I think
guys
you
now.
just kind of. I'm happy to be here. I'll tell you that much. I'm happy to continue making fantasy stuff. I love it. But
also Scotland. We're in Scotland,
which
is where everyone else pays to come to film that genre. So it's the right place. We've got the right people, got the right stuff. So it's just like stay within that sort of ecosphere of genre.
It was a good right place, right time, right people. Because it was right. I think did we meet them during lockdown? It was like mid-COVID. It was when they lifted the kind of lockdown.
It was when you could go to the pub, but you had to do it in single file and not listen to music.
And I think it was
with a beach ball on your head.
And we were all just starved and making things, so it worked out well.
And you must have rattled out the proof of concept / trailer quite quickly, because I think I saw that around about that time.
Yes.
Or maybe I'm mistaken, but
so we're talking. We met each other in summer. We filmed that November, and we pushed it out probably not that long after, probably January or something.
It was quick. It was a quick turnaround. It
was
at that stage. It was a small scale production. Because when we initially went into this production, it was like, we're going to do a Kickstarter, which we've never done before. And we're going to try and raise funds to make I think it was like a 10-minute, 15-minute short film.
It was supposed to be short at the start.
It was short, and then when the Kickstarter blew up, it was like, right, we have the opportunity to make something a lot bigger with the funds that we've got. So we might, and everyone was so keen and
it was
eager
also
as
the
well.
appeal.
It was the appeal,
It was because it'd gone viral within the tabletop community, and because of that, we're like, we know we've got the eyes on us now. Why don't we go for it and make something that's kind of like a micro feature, a 45-minute length thing instead of a 10-minute thing. Much to our anguish, what a challenge that would present to us later. At the time, it seemed like a good idea because we're excited. It was supposed to be 10 minutes, and it would have been so achievable in that budget. But
it became like an episodic thing, didn't it? So the concept was to do.
Concept was to do that as a part one.
To
keep people interested.
It was going to be 3 parts, 10 minutes each, and then it became 1 part, 45 minutes long. Massive in comparison to the original. But then that gave us the chance to basically approach it like we were approaching a feature film, rather than it kind of serves as a piece of TV as well, if you were to put it like back to what it was supposed to be, a part one. But it also serves as our sort of like first attempt at a sort of micro feature. I deliberately made sure it didn't go into the feature category just in case we wanted to hold that card.
Is it under 40 minminutes then?
It's 43 minutes or
it's
so.
Like 43 minutes, and I think 45 minutes when it becomes a full feature. So I always felt nervous about officially making a first feature. So I was like, let's keep this one a micro feature just to see how it goes.
But the interesting thing is, since we released it, we made shorter versions. We call them fight films. So it's like shorter, like 5-minute, under 10-minute short films of a fight scene.
Sort of scenarios where
exactly, and that's pretty much what the initial concept would have been. And now those videos have done well, but they've not done anywhere near as well as the full film did. Because it became this whole other thing, and it wasn't just a YouTube video; it was like an actual movie, albeit 43 minutes. But I think that's what got the fans on board and supported it so much, because they wanted something. They were starved of that kind of content other than just your standard YouTube fight film.
And to my delight, I'm not going to use the word content to describe it because it's a movie.
It's a movie, damn it.
To my delight, I've randomly bumped into people who've seen it and didn't know anything about me, for example.
That's been
and
nice.
I've gone, I'm the guy who made that, and they're like, no way. And I've heard of guys who've arranged movie nights with their friends to watch it and stuff like that. And I was like, that's how it should be enjoyed.
That's what you want. That's what you want.
I'm starting to use the term savor culture, because throwaway culture is what we're living in at the moment. But savor culture is when you savor the thing that you're watching and
recommend it. You recommend it to somebody else.
You talk about it like that's what it used to be all about, and I feel like that should make a comeback.
Absolutely.
So you smashed your crowdfunder, and then you must have gone into casting after that, I presume.
So
casting was an interesting process.
You had the Clan Ranulph guys. But
we had a bit of a trade agreement, let's put it, with the clan, because the point of it was to give them roles so that they could actually have creative control and also be in the thing. So there was a lot of like pre-picked people, and then we kind of wrote characters to make sure that that person had a role in the film. And it started that way around, rather than just writing the characters and then cast them.
I think about, I'm pulling this off the top of my head, but I think about 90% of the cast were members of Clan Ranulph.
I think these are experienced guys. They've been in Gladiator.
They've been in
Norsemen. Outlaw King.
They know their stuff, but the problem is they've not been given like leading roles or frontline roles. So that was an opportunity for them to shine.
We had to, we kind of had to divide it where we had to get a little bit of honesty from them, going like who can perform, like who can actually act as well as do the fights. Everyone's great at the fighting stuff, that's cool, but there's some of them who take the acting seriously. Some of them actually have trained in acting as well. So we we casted very carefully based on that as well, with the main roles especially. And I think we cherry picked about 3 or 4 actors that weren't Clan to play other roles.
And those were people that we'd worked with previously on other productions that we wanted to bring into this one. So small amount of cast from our side, but the majority from Clan Ranulph, and they did a fantastic job. It was a wonderful job.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really good.
Guy, do we have a clip that we can show at this point, or?
People of the Great Pork Racer, I have the honour of welcoming our guest, Sir Florian Lanqui and his Knights of the Quest.
Something's off about this place, lads. I've got that gut feeling.
I want you all on your guard. It's going to be a long night.
Said he's there!
This is the second Grail day in a row I've missed.
That could be worse.
How could it possibly be worse?
Well, for one thing.
You saw him? Oh God! He's supposed to be dead. Said you killed him.
I did kill him. I'll just have to kill him again.
Half the Baron's toys are broken antiques.
Sometimes an antique is just what you need.
Absolutely amazing.
Aye,
Thank you very much.
I mean,
Thank you.
We've seen the finished article, but I'm just being reminded. I can't believe that's 2 years since it came out.
I know.
I was just thinking that.
It feels weird because even though I'm like constantly worrying about the YouTube channel, that's the first time I've seen that trailer in ages.
And it looks like it looks like way more than $1 million. I'm going to be honest with you.
For sure.
And you
Thank you
guys,
very
how
much.
much did you guys raise? 27
grand, yeah.
The budget was 27
The
grand.
whole budget was 27
Yeah,
grand.
because Kickstarter took its It's crap.
Yeah. That is
But-
wild, though. That is
you.
absolutely wild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
looks
mostly
tremendous.
like for people who don't know, it was mostly voluntary work, obviously. So it's 27 grand budget, but we drew up a shadow budget of what it should have cost if we paid everyone, and you're looking like in excess of 400 grand even in doing it at a low budget.
It really adds up when you look into it. But the majority of our budget went on catering, transportation, and just a few props.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, it's just paying for the stuff that we couldn't get otherwise.
You're still talking about a day or two on a big production, though. Like a Game of Thrones or something.
It's
you know what I
nothing.
mean? It's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing on the grand scheme of things. We spent about 13 days making that.
Consecutive.
I think it was meant to be 13 and it turned into 19. It was like weekends because we're relying on volunteers. And
everyone was
stuff
working
like
full-time jobs, and we were relying on weekends and who's available.
It was cold winter nights.
I was going to say it was all night shoots and stuff.
All night shoots.
Yes.
Well, except for 2. And it was long cold nights because we deliberately started. Because we live in Scotland, we have a daylight shift that's quite significant between summer and winter. We started in autumn when the nights get longer. And then what always happens with films, delays happen, but we were only using weekends. So before long, we were in winter. And we got guys that were like topless in the forest.
You wanted darkness.
Middle of winter. Yeah,
we wanted darkness, and I'm glad we did because it worked. But it was pitch black, freezing cold, muddy, dirty, smoky. And I think because of that, it comes across on screen. Like, I feel like I can smell that trailer. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's just ingrained in my mind now, but it paid off.
There are certain things I've learned about taking for granted when you're shooting in daylight is that you can see all of the time.
Yeah.
When you're shooting at night in the middle of the forest at a location without power,
you can't put anything down. You'll never see it again.
Your torch is on, and then as soon as it's on, you're blinding the guy that's in front of you because you're wearing a head torch. So you're like doing that, and you're constantly like just looking for stuff. If I'm looking for crew, I'm like, are you in front of me? I can't tell because it's like I can only see so far, and then it's just pitch black, and then I'll hear like hello, and I'm like, okay, it's so much more stress and work when you're in the pitch black because it's just the very basic things you need when you're filmmaking. It's just that much trickier.
I think if it had been a professional paid big production by Amazon or something, everyone would have been really miserable because they're getting paid, but they're there to do a job and they want to get out of there. Whereas because this was built on passion and enthusiasm, everyone's spirits were super high. Even though it was horrible weather conditions, everyone was sitting around the fireplace and you'd go up to them like, are you having a good time? Having a great time, mate. Having a great time. Making a movie, it's like, yeah, good. That teetered off towards the end. Though. I think there was day 14. It was
you get harder nights than others. When it rains, that's when everyone gets a bit miserable. But like on the drier nights for sure, like the banter between bros. It's like all these guys that wanted to do something like this for ages. They're finally doing it. And they're all kitted up. They're all just bantering and stuff whilst we're getting stuff made.
Living the experience.
It was an experience, and we've made lasting friendships from this production. People that we co-workers and just friends as well.
Well, that was what I was going to ask was if your experience of making it had because it must have been tough, obviously all the night shoots and shooting in winter and stuff like that. And was it everything you wanted it to be, or were there moments where you kind of thought, like, I don't know if I want to be a filmmaker if this is what it is.
Not to us, no. I think
not to me.
The way I've described this to people, the analogy that I keep using is directing a film. This gave me my first sort of real taste of what that feels like, and I'm pretty sure it's the same no matter what budget you've got. It's kind of like that old silent comedy where the guy's on. His name always escapes my brain. He's on front of the train.
Buster Keaton.
He's chucking the log.
And he's trying to knock things out of the way of the train before it hits it. That's what directing feels like, because you can do as much planning as you want, but once you're there on the day, it's always relentless. Doesn't matter how much time you've got, it's always relentless, and you never have enough time or money. And I've heard all the big directors saying the same thing. It just feels like this is out of control, but I've got to make sure we don't hit those logs. So you're just constantly just problem solving, but on the fly. You don't have time to sit down and go, right, let's properly think about it. It's going, oh, that's on fire.
Let's fix
throw a
it.
water balloon at that and then get this shot. It's always on the fly.
You're getting like a rush of adrenaline as well when you're on set. So there was never a point where I was just like, oh god.
Yeah.
There was points like that when I was editing the visual effects, but that's comes with the territory. But
visual effects are astounding.
Thank you very much. Well, I think I did close to 2,000 hours in VFX. That's why it took so long in post-production. I try not to think about that. Half the shots, I'm like, I don't even remember doing that. I was just in a trance. It was like, well, do one shot, on to the next one, on to the next one, and hope it works out. And it did, but it was a lot of work. But it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, I think that's what, like, personally, that's what elevates the film is there's some great storytelling in it and stuff, but there's a great sense of humor in it, and those visual effects and you know the fighting, the choreography and stuff like that those are the stuff, like you said, it looks like it cost 1 million times more than it did, but those are the things that like absolutely stand out to me. That you know, because you could plow a lot of time and money and effort into making something that doesn't have the humor, doesn't have those just those flourishes.
It's entertainment. That's I mean, we always found going to like film festivals and stuff, there'd be films that are funded and really well shot, and they're using amazing equipment, and everyone that worked on it's clearly a professional, but you forget it as soon as you walk out the festival. Whereas the film that made everyone laugh, that might have been cheap, that might have been made frugally, if it makes the entire audience laugh, they're going to remember it. And that's the one that people are talking about at the bar afterwards.
You're there to invoke emotion. You're not there to like show off how good the kit was that you shot on. It's so like the thing that's always at the foremost of our brains when we're writing these things together is this entertaining? And frankly, we're a bit ADHD with the way we watch things these days, so is everyone. So we kind of write for ourselves in a way where we go, when am I getting bored? All right, I've got bored at this point.
100%. That's the privilege of making films. You can correct all of those things.
Totally.
Egregious things that you've seen other people do. This is your chance.
That's it. It's kind of like, I find probably one of the interesting approaches we take, at least when it comes to films like Chaos and like what we hope to make in future, is the pacing of the first act.
Well, we never
have a different approach to it.
We have a different. We never shoot for coverage. Everything's planned, everything's storyboarded or prevised, and we because we're editors as well, we know the in point and the out point. So it's not like, just shoot a bunch of stuff and we'll figure out in post. Because even when we came to the edit, it wasn't like we need to cut this down, or it was like we need to extend this, because we filmed everything we filmed is on screen.
So it's a lot of it single camera,
It was all single camera.
Single camera, then we were the second unit, because we didn't have a second unit. Obviously, we couldn't afford one. So eventually, when we did need to buff out, it was the fight scenes. It was when there was just lots of scrapping and stuff, close-ups on spears and shit. We had to go back out and just have a B-roll day, because obviously this kind of production, you can't have a second unit. So we had to be the second unit. So if anything, our weakness is undershooting, but like, as Jack's saying, it's a bit like one of my inspirations is Edgar Wright, and he shoots to kill. He goes, right, this is exactly how it's going to look at the edit. I already know it, so I'm just going to shoot those shots.
It's part of the narrative. It's part of the storytelling. Is the edit. So it's super important to us, and we just make sure that we know where it's going in, and we know where it's going out, and we know where the scene is going and the pacing.
And I kind of have this thing where if they've been talking for too long, I'm like, right, what's going to go wrong? What's going to happen?
Spear.
I throw something in, because at the end of the day, we're making a film for the kind of audience who want to see action. So I'm like, right, action hasn't happened in 5 minutes. Let's make action.
It's knowing your audience as well, and I think these are the kind of films that we watch. So we are the audience for this kind of stuff, but then also gauging the audience based on the Kickstarter, we kind of saw, right, these guys, how they responded to our other promo videos, because we did a bunch of promo videos, and it's like you need to get right into the action, because otherwise they'll tune out. They'll switch off, and it's on YouTube, so they can quite easily. They're not paid for a cinema ticket, so they're not invested sitting in a dark theater. They can just click off.
That was a challenge behind it. Actually, is this is a YouTube film, and we're dealing with.
Was that always the purpose, or?
So just to sort of address that in a sort of wider sense, the purpose of the entire movie was to basically kind of print out a CV and put it out to a massive audience in film form, because we've done it so many times before with our various sketches and stuff like that. It was constantly a graft between, let's make something that might be monetizable and actually bring us income, but the wider vision here is to get ourselves noticed by a bigger entity or something like that. That's always been the sort of concept.
To get the right people's attention.
Yeah.
Fair play to you for choosing an established IP as well, because that's quite a ballsy move in my opinion.
I think I think it's a sign of the times. Is really, even the biggest studios in the world are having to rely on pre-existing IP.
Yep.
And to do a Kickstarter with a completely original concept is really difficult. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons we had never done that before.
A lot of the stuff we were doing was like pastiche or parody of video games. So we're already kind of doing stuff within that ilk, and it was always a case of, because I'm a nerd, like I watch this stuff and I do want to see these kind of films exist. And then especially in around this area, this universe, these sorts of like tabletop games, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They haven't got movies, and I don't know why. They've not been making movies. Apparently they're starting to do it now.
Yeah, there was talk of a Henry Cavill one.
A series or something like that.
Amazon. I think that's going ahead.
Oh, is it?
I think so, but who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point is why have they waited this long to actually make anything?
I'm sure there's a bunch of politics behind the scenes as to why they've not done it. But the what we noticed was the fans wanted it.
Yes.
And we wanted to make something fantasy, and it's weird because there's audience out there that will love the thing that you're making, but if it's not tied to something they already know, then they're probably going to ignore it. So you just need to get their attention. Even though we made an original film, it's all original characters, original story, original location. Yeah. You're just tapping into that tabletop fantasy, because it's just saying, are you a fantasy fan? You might like this. It's so broad.
Yeah.
You kind of need to be a bit more specific and niche.
They use it in Marvel films all the time, intercontextuality. It's like having this guy appear in that film, and they've taken it too far though, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely.
They've taken it to a point where that is the plot line.
That's the whole
we kind of went
business.
Here's the universe, is the sort of something that you're familiar with. We're inspired by that, and we love it too. Here's our story. Yeah. And what we think would happen there. And that just gives them a setting that they already are in love with, and just go, cool, I want to dig my teeth into this. And it just makes it a lot easier to sell the project. Because at the end of the day, as much as we're all artists, films are products, and you have to kind of treat them that way at some point in your creative process. You've got to remember it's got to sell. So you've got to think how that's going to work before you start making it.
Exactly. Which is, that gets a bad press if you're solely looking at it from that point of view. But obviously, we're coming from it from a place of passion and love of film. And then once you get into the business, you start to realize you are selling a product.
Yeah,
and a business, and a place of poverty.
Yeah, it's the film industry.
A place of being a poor, starving artist.
Yes, exactly.
I'm living that reality. I have done for 10, 13 years or something. So, like, at some point, I want to make money. So
it would be nice, wouldn't it?
It becomes more and more apparent as you work at it longer.
Yeah.
So you've got to make something that sells.
So the reception to you said you went to film festivals and stuff like that, and obviously like the YouTube numbers
for Chaos Rising. Not for Chaos Rising. We spent a lot of time doing like local film festivals back when we started out.
Okay.
Working together, and we kind of stopped going along because we weren't really getting where we wanted to be. But with Chaos Rising, from the very beginning, we knew it was going to be YouTube.
Yeah.
And we didn't really want to go down the film festival route. We wanted to just put it out there. Okay. You can watch it for free. The more people that watch it, the better. The more people sharing it, the better.
Yeah.
And use the word of mouth and audience engagement to push the train along, really. Yeah. And it worked.
Oh, yeah, it got great numbers.
And we want to start a conversation as well about indie and indie filmmakers being able to just make stuff better than the big boys. And that's what a lot of the feedback to the film is.
Yeah.
Saying, why aren't Netflix doing this? I think it was right at the time Witcher was starting to do that after such a strong start. So a lot of people were frustrated by big funded films and TV shows
lose it the way for no particular reason.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones did it as well.
Yeah. They all seem to do it.
And we came in with this little indie project that had a lot of heart and soul and truth to the, even though it was inspired and we kept it as vague as possible, it still like managed to hit the nail on the head better than some of these big projects do.
Yeah.
And it's good seeing the response. Sometimes you can make a film, put it online, people watch it, but they don't necessarily say anything about it, or they'll give a generic great or cool.
Yeah.
And you're like, great,
Yeah.
thanks. But
Good job, son.
because of this project, the engagement, people were commenting and like referencing parts of the
Yeah.
movie and saying, I love this bit and I love that bit, and seeing that. And because when we
And do you think that's
released
because you're
it,
tapping into a community?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's for a community, made by a community as well, so that it feels more. There's more soul to it than just like a faceless. We're making a film, and this is support us to make a movie. This is a community project coming together to make something we all want to watch.
And it also, as filmmakers, it advertises our ability to adapt, which is such a big like coin at the moment right now with films getting made. They're all reboots, they're all adaptations anyway. Especially like the AAA movies. So showing ourselves off as filmmakers who can adapt fiction and not piss off the fans at the same time is quite a difficult balancing act these days. So to try and do that and to hopefully what we think successfully do it kind of shows the ability to do that.
Sorry, have people asked you about the more Chaos Rising, like a second, third episode?
Yes.
People are constantly saying, "Where's the next one? Where's the next one?"
I wondered that.
Yeah, well, listen, it's
pay me
because of what it really comes down to money because we did this.
Absolutely, yeah.
And everyone was a volunteer. It was kind of, I don't want to say a one-off, but it was a Hail Mary, and it was a gambit, and we spent 3 years making it, and we've got a great film out the back of it. It's up online. We can use it to get further projects made. I'd love to do a second one.
Yeah.
If the fans could come together and there's money there and we can do it properly and buy the book and everyone gets paid and everyone's happy, then yes.
Yeah. So there are, just to like put the facts on the table, we wrote the story for 3 films. The story arc, at least, not the actual scripts. So an episode 2 and 3 do exist and we know what happens. It's just whether or not we would continue going down that route, especially with all the sort of IP danger, without having, frankly, I just want to get endorsed by Games Workshop. I want them to come over and go, you've made our fans
not
happy.
going to sue you.
Have some money. Yeah, we're not going to sue you.
That would be great.
You've made our fans happy. We can see that. How about you make something for us, whether it's continue making this or make something new within the same genre or whatever. That would be the ultimate end goal of the Chaos Rising like IP and project, and that would be when it truly succeeded at what it was sort of intended for, I guess.
Yeah, that would be great, but
What is IP? Just so people
Intellectual property.
yes, intellectual property.
Intellectual
You're
property.
welcome, internet.
Yeah, for anyone at home who
IP
didn't
being
know.
intellectual property, which is kind of like the broadsheet term to explain anything that's a creative idea that belongs to a person.
I only know that from spending time with Adrian. So, yeah.
I think it becomes more apparent these days because it's no longer just you're selling a movie. They say IP because they want to branch out. They want to franchise.
They want
We're
world
making a movie, a
building.
TV show,
Based on a
magazine.
comic book.
So IP
It's
comes.
Cinematic
game.
universe.
Yeah.
universe.
Sagas and things. That's why IP is
multiverse.
so much more
That's
popular
the
now.
state of the industry right now. That's the way it is, and
It's
it
a
seems to
catch-all
be
term. Yeah.
making money.
So what's next for you guys that you can talk about at the moment?
With Chaos Rising, we're continuing to make our fight videos.
Yes.
So these are fun
Yeah, I've
videos
seen one
that
of
we've
those
been doing.
online recently.
And it's really to explore the combat side, because we did touch on it a lot on Chaos Rising, but we're getting more interested in it, working with more experienced fighters and choreographers and camera operators. So we're pushing that as a learning technique for us, really.
We learned how to do everything with nothing. We're now trying to learn how to do everything with something. So it's like we learned how to do it with volunteers, people who aren't necessarily qualified enough for certain roles, things like that. Now we're trying to do everything by the book. Where, with the fight films, we're getting the choreo with enough training and experience to do the choreo. And we're trying to up our game. We're like starting to include rigging and things like that. There's all these like elements that we didn't have in Chaos Rising, which we're trying to improve upon and just make ourselves even sharper at what we do. So that we're basically trying to act like a package deal, where you get we're not just 2 directors. We're filmmakers who have a directing team, we have a fight team, and all this kind of stuff. So it's this thing that could be appealing to a buyer, say, and
And there's a narrative element to the fight scenarios and stuff as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
you're still,
there's always a story being told, and,
Yeah,
and the fight is just
How
added
much
to
story we tell is up to the audience. I've watched retention graphs do that as soon as you do anything at all that isn't fighting. So
we just start with fighting, end with the fighting.
Yeah.
But no, it's been a good learning process. But Chaos Rising has opened some pretty big doors for us, and we're working on some exciting projects that we can't announce just yet. But it's fun.
We're gonna have to get you back when you can announce them.
Oh yes, yes, definitely. But it's been a big learning process for us. But it's keeping us very busy.
Yeah, we're in the development phase for some things at the moment, but we've also had some opportunities come through the door, smaller ones, for like fight films and things like that. We've had a couple people pitch their own ones and are potentially going to basically hire us on that, a sort of pro rata sort of agreement where we do come as the package deal. So there's a couple things.
So there is a market in it.
There seems
a market.
There seems to be, especially since YouTube exists and it can be monetized. They can see the sort of profitability of doing things like this. What better than to hire a team who do all of it for you and just put it on your channel, whatever. So there's a bit of that happening, and then development for a bigger thing as well. So
it's all very exciting, and we're doing a commercial right now for a mead company.
Yes.
Can we talk about that one?
Yeah.
For Nidhogger Mead,
Yeah.
Who is run by a friend of ours who was actually involved in Chaos Rising. He's in Chaos Rising. He's the storyteller that gets axed in the back.
Yeah, he's telling the kids a story and then he dies.
Spoilers.
He started a mead company in his garage or something whilst we were filming Chaos. And he
So was there mead going about as well?
Yes,
Real
there
mead?
was. Yeah.
There was mead. We had a limited edition run of Chaos Rising mead, which sold out immediately.
Was that Kickstarter perk or
That
No, that was a sponsorship.
that was a sponsorship. Yeah.
So he sold that and gave us some of the profits basically towards the film. So he became one of the executive producers on Chaos.
And it is delicious, by the way. If you've not tried it, definitely.
I
It's
haven't tried
so
his, but
good.
I've tried mead.
So sweet.
But back to the point, we're making an advert for him at the moment,
Yes.
which is like Dungeons and Dragons inspired. So it's another adaptation-based thing.
Cool.
And now his company's got to a size where you can actually budget an advert, which is nice to see
Commercial, yeah.
someone else grow.
Are you just skirting another lawsuit here?
Yes.
Well, it's tabletop games, but no, it's given us the opportunity to explore a little bit more of the kind of stylized visuals, because we're used to doing things all practically. A lot of Chaos Rising was practical. There was a lot of CG, but a lot of stuff was on set, real locations. And this one, we're doing a lot more with the green screen.
Okay.
And we've progressed since we were 10 and 14.
Yeah.
Doing
So you're not,
watching green
not
screens.
Big orange light anymore.
I don't touch the green screen.
But that's been
his
fun.
job, yeah.
That's been fun. So look out for that. That's coming out soon.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, links to all of Charlie and Jack's work will be below in the description box. The question I always ask our guests is, if you had one piece of advice for anyone wanting to get into filmmaking, what would it be?
Oh, wow.
Sprung this on them, haven't you?
Discuss this in the car. Right. This is harsh advice, but I think young filmmakers need to hear it. Is a lot. I hear it going around a lot, where you need to be delusional to be a good filmmaker. You need to be delusional and check yourself every now and then, and make sure you have ability as well. Because I feel like a lot of people think, if I'm deluded enough, I can make it in the film industry. And you see a lot of people just going purely down that route, and they ignore the fact that they're not improving, and they don't let people see their work, and they don't get criticized.
That is important,
that's such an important part
you
of
need
filmmaking.
feedback, you need criticism.
Humility is such an
Listen to
important
it.
part of getting better as a filmmaker, and I think a lot of people try to avoid that because they're exposing themselves. They're exposing themselves to the world, and it's like, I think the reason I got better as a filmmaker is because I kept making short stuff and releasing it to the world. When you go online, you don't go back. You know, the kind of comments you get on there, you get the worst comments you can imagine. So doing that gives you a thicker skin, allows you to persevere, allows you to improve. You don't always need to take the comments to heart, but it's delusion and checking yourself. The two ingredients
before you shrek yourself.
That's good advice.
No,
man.
that is good advice. I think keep making things, keep releasing them, and learn from the feedback. Most importantly, my advice would be learn the business side, because if you're going in just purely based on passion, and even if you are good at what you do, if you don't understand the business side, you're not going to survive, because it is an industry and nobody's going to hand you money Nobody's going to give you something. You need to have a product that you're selling. Otherwise, if nobody wants to buy your product, nobody's going to give you money to make it.
And funnily enough, no one ever comes along and says, I really want to get into filmmaking, but, all I bring to the table is lots of business acumen.
Tons of money.
So if you can take care of all that glamorous stuff, I'll do all your accounting, I'll do all your admin.
It's like a fantasy.
Even the biggest filmmakers have to sit at a table at some point and sell a movie to someone. So it's it doesn't matter how good you are as a creator.
Start learning it pronto. We kind of came in, or I definitely came in late to the game and kind of had to crash course learn it as I was going along. But the sooner you learn that stuff, the better.
Yeah.
Because it's going to set you up to succeed, for sure.
Solid advice. Yeah. Charlie and Jack, thank you very much for coming along.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye, guys.